Welcome and thank you for joining today's session. uniFLOW Online supports mixed printer fleets in a simple and predictable way, with Canon as the core platform and additional vendors such as HP, Lexmark, and Sharp commonly found across remote offices, departmental locations, and indeed acquired sites. Now, in this session, we'll take a practical look at the embedded apps available for HP, Lexmark, and Sharp, focusing on the key features and user experience that aligns with the Canon in a mixed fleet environment. Now, this isn't a deep technical dive, but a clear view of how the experience stays consistent across different vendors. So let's begin with the agenda. Now, here's the structure for today's session. I'll begin with a case study to set the scene, followed by the current uniFLOW Online embedded app lineup. We then will talk about the walkthrough, the user experience across Lexmark, Sharp, and HP before reviewing the capabilities across them. Now, I'll outline the subscriptions, the hardware requirements, and then close with the most frequently asked questions. So let's begin with the case study. Now, in many organizations, printer fleets grow over time rather than being designed in one go. Different vendors are added to support departments, remote offices, or locations that come through acquisitions. Now, from the outside, the environment looks manageable, but underneath, it's a mix of devices with different behaviors and expectations. Users move between printers that don't work in the same way, even though they are part of the same organization. IT teams are responsible for keeping that environment running smoothly, supporting users across multiple locations and device types. Now, trying to maintain a consistent experience where possible for the users, which can be challenging. Now, this kind of setup isn't unusual, but it sets the stage for the day-to-day challenges we are now going to see next. So in practice, this inconsistency shows up at the device. Users hesitate because the steps aren't the same from one printer to the next. Login works one way here, release works another way there, and even small differences are enough to slow people down during the routine printing. Finishing makes things even worse. Options don't always align, so users resend documents or switch to another device to get the expected outcome, which wastes time and adds frustrations and even indeed costs. Now, for IT, this quickly turns into noise. Support teams deal with the same questions again and again around login steps, missing jobs, or release behavior, even though nothing has changed in policy or access. Now, guest printing often adds another layer of complexity when it's not available everywhere, making it harder to support visitors or indeed temporary staff. The result is less control over the printing activity, reduced cost visibility, and unnecessary inefficiencies across the organization. So now let's look at how uniFLOW Online addresses this. With uniFLOW Online, it delivers a unified printing workflow across Canon and HP. This is the two vendors we're going to look at in the case study. Users authenticate in the same way on each device and always see their own secure print queue. Now, whether they submit from email, web upload, or from the desktop, the experience stays consistent and guest printing follows the same model on both brands. For desktop printing, jobs are submitted using the universal driver or the virtual printer app, rather than device-specific drivers. Now, at the device, users release jobs, adjusting finishing settings, and use device-based scan to myself in the same way, regardless of the brand. For HP, in the background, full usage tracking is applied across print, copy, scan, and fax, and the setup works correctly in the zero trust environments. So with that in place, let's look at the benefits this actually delivers. So with uniFLOW Online, Canon and HP devices behave in the same way at the point of use. Users log in, they find their jobs, release and adjust finishing without having to think about which device they're actually standing at. For IT, that consistency reduces support calls, improves visibility and control Overall, the environment becomes easier to run and IT and more pred- predictable for the users. So, how is that consistency delivered across the different vendors? Let's have a look. Now let's look at the combined user experience delivered by the embedded apps across vendors. This section focuses on how Lexmark, Sharp, and HP behave in a day-to-day use within uniFLOW Online, and before we walk through the on-device experience itself. So these embedded apps all deliver the same core user experience in uniFLOW Online. Users authenticate in the same way, see their own secure print queue, and interact with jobs in a consistent way across these vendors. Print jobs arrive from the same submission paths, and desktop printing follows the same model across these devices. Release, finishing changes, and usage tracking behave consistently at the device, and all supported configurations operate correctly in the zero trust environment. So to keep this practical, we'll use Lexmark as the on-screen example. The steps you're about to see apply in the same way to Sharp and HP unless a specific difference is called out. So on Lexmark devices, the login step works in the way users already know from the Canon. Staff sign in using a card or PIN, and where guest printing is enabled, visitors enter a job code they receive when submitting the documents via email. Now, the key point here is that users are not faced with different sign-in processes just because they're standing at this particular device. Once signed in, they are taken directly to their secure queue. Now, with login complete, we can now look at the secure printing and finishing at the device. So once signed in, users see again that print queue immediately with all pending jobs shown in one place. From here, they can release the jobs, again, make those basic finishing changes, such as switching between color and mono or simplex and duplex directly at the device. Now, this keeps the walk-up experience quick and predictable for users carrying out their routine printing. So with the Lexmark reference flow now covered end to end, we can now move on to the next embedded app example, which is Sharp. Now, once users sign in at the Sharp device, they see their print queue straight away, as before, with all pending jobs shown in one place. From there, they can again release the jobs, make basic finishing changes directly at the device. Now, the same steps apply as shown previously for secure printing. Now, guest printing is not supported on the Sharp. This is quite key to take into account, which highlights is going to be highlighted later in the compatibility comparison slide. Now, with that confirmed, let's move on to the next final device, which is HP. So, on an HP device, users sign in using the same authentication methods already shown, including card, PIN, card plus PIN, or indeed their smartphone. Now, once signed in, the interaction flows the same in terms of the model across the supported platforms. Now, where users see their secure queue and they can release their jobs and they can make those basic finishing settings. I know I'm repeating this, but it's the whole point that there's a consistent look and feel across these embedded apps. Now, device-based scan to myself and guest printing are actually supported on HP. Now, with the on-device experience now confirmed across vendors, we can step back and compare capabilities side by side. Okay. Now, Canon, as we know, offers the broadest overall capability, including My Print Anywhere and advanced scanning through the cloud image processing subscription. HP, Lexmark, and Sharp provide the same core embedded app experience with consistent authentication using card, PIN, card plus PIN, or smartphone. Across all four vendors, secure printing, finishing before release, device-based scan to myself, and both local and cloud job storage behave in the same way. Desktop submission through the universal driver or the virtual printer app keeps behavior predictable across the fleet. Fantastic. Now, in terms of key differences, there is a limitation. Guest printing is supported on the Canon, the HP, and Lexmark, but as I mentioned earlier, not on the Sharp. So if there is guest printing required in that environment, say with Canon and Sharp, users will have to be directed to the Canon device for guest printing. Okay, scanning via uniFLOW Online remains Canon only. All supported vendors operate correctly within zero trust environments. Now, with that comparison complete, let's move into the subscription and hardware requirements. So, CPS Type 1 is the subscription that enables embedded app support across Canon, Lexmark, Sharp, and HP, whilst cloud image processing continues only to provide the advanced Canon only scanning. Cloud Essentials, very key here, is not supported for Lexmark, Sharp, or HP embedded apps. As you can see on the slide, each vendor has a defined hardware scope, and those differences are captured in the table. Now, the key point for the HP is that supported devices require a WorkPath premium term license per device, which is shown on the slide. So with that, now let's move into the frequently asked questions, which is a new feature of my webinars. So I won't go through all of them, but these are the questions customers normally raise first when they start looking at mixed vendor support with uniFLOW Online. They're about everyday use at the device, how jobs are submitted, how users sign in, how finishing actually works, and whether things like guest printing or zero trust behave consistently across the Canon, HP, Lexmark, and Sharp vendors. This also, in terms of another batch of frequently asked questions, usually comes up once the basics are clear to the customer. They focus on practical setup side, which subscriptions are required, where advanced scanning applies, how desktop submissions are handled, and which devices are supported across Canon, HP, Lexmark, and Sharp. So with that, we've come to the close. Thank you for taking part in today's session. uniFLOW Online provides a consistent, secure printing experience across mixed fleets. I'm sure you can gather that now from the webinar, making environments easier to manage for IT and more predictable for the user. Now, if you need a deeper vendor-specific details, there are individual presentations on each embedded app available on the NTware partner site. Those are the best references to review after the session for the latest capability and support information. Now, if you have any follow-up questions or need to help in terms of positioning, scoping, or demonstrating, please speak with your business consultant or indeed your pre-sales contact. Thank you, and I'll see you on the next one.